Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Supergirl. My name is Daniel. I'm one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me on planet Krypton is Shahbaz.
Hello.
And Anthony.
I'm not on Krypton. I left that place, man. That thing is about to blow up. I don't know what you put us on Krypton for.
That place is awful. That we're pre-explosion. We're pre-explosion on Krypton. We're chilling. We're with Zor-El and Jor-El.
Yo, my dad,
brothers. We're
he
having a good
sent
time.
me away. He's like, get the hell out of here, kid.
Get off this planet and go conquer Earth, you loser. It's like, oh, okay. That Jor-El, why are you talking like this to Kal-El? He's a little baby. This is crazy. Today we are talking all about Supergirl, of course. This is directed by Craig Gillespie, who is also a friend of the show. If you remember back, oh my God, is it 2023? 2022, whenever Dumb Money came out, we spoke to Craig Gillespie in Toronto at TIFF. And then last year, we were so lucky to speak to Milly Alcock for Sirens. And now I'm also wondering, was it last year or was that 2024 that
Sirens
we spoke
was,
to her?
I think, last year, yeah.
Okay, thank God. I was going to say, I didn't want time sometimes, you know what I mean? It's everywhere. But yeah, that's so crazy. It's so cool, though, to be coming into a project knowing that we've spoken to two people. And guess what? Craig Gillespie and Milly Alcock are back on the movie podcast later this week. So we'll get to talk to them all about Supergirl. So stay tuned for that. But today is all about our review of Supergirl, which is coming out this week on June 26th. We want to say a huge thank you to our friends at Warner Brothers for working with us on the review and for our interviews, which again, like I said, will be on podcast feeds, on socials, wherever you are. The movie podcast is there. If you like what we're doing, consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you are. A like goes a long way for us. So thank you so much for that. This is a big one. This is the second film in the DCU. And, if you remember back a year ago when Superman was coming out, we knew this was on the horizon. We didn't know about Man of Tomorrow yet. And now the DCU has grown a lot more. Obviously, we have Creature Commandos. We have Lanterns coming out this year. We have season 2 of Peacemaker that has come out. So the DCU has really started to carve out a lot of this universe. And I just want, let's get a little bit of a temperature check for you, Anthony. What do you think of the DCU so far? I know Superman made your top 10 of the list for last year for like our top movies of 2025. How are we feeling about the DCU, where it's going now that we know that Man of Tomorrow is on the horizon for next year?
I don't remember it being on my top 10, but
it was, though. It was. I remember because I was like, okay. I was not expecting it.
I was a little shocked too.
I think that was a Christmas gift to you.
Oh, thank you. I didn't make the movie, by the way. I wanted to make you
happy, dude. I'm like, I'm going to give it to you.
Okay. Even though we recorded it in January, it's all good. Yeah.
And after we recorded, you were like, I regret that decision so badly.
Did Daniel just take over my body? That's so weird.
And he only gave it number 10?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Like, I really like Creature Commandos, but other than that, I think Superman, like, I had my issues with Superman. I think it's a well-made movie. I think there's parts that I don't like about it. I just feel that the DCU at the moment I can't gauge it, like I can't understand where it's leading to and what it wants to be. Marvel kind of is established what we expect from comic book movies, continuity, community, especially with just all these heroes showing up in different movies and just trying to kind of tell a story that's going to lead to a bigger event, which I like because it's very comic book. That's all comic books do. They have these middle stories and then they lead to a bigger event and all these guys gather. With the DCU, James Gunn says, I don't want to do that. I want these to be more of a singularity story. Still have these big characters appear in it. But I'm right now in this feeling of, I don't know what the game plan is for them. I don't know what their calendar looks like. It feels very messy at this point. It feels discombobulated is the word that's come into my head. But I'm hoping for the better, especially with Green Lantern or the Lanterns. I thought that trailer was interesting, especially as a TV series. But overall, I'm not there with it yet.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the DCU's in the spot right now where I think every project that we've gotten, and this will be something that I echo in Supergirl, is that it always kind of feels like we're getting thrown into not even the second act, we're getting thrown into a sequel where I'm like, but I want to know what happened. Like, how did we get here? Like, why is the world like this? And again, the benefit of Marvel in 2008 is that they had time. It wasn't like it is now where it just like the machine we're like, okay, we're rolling, we're going. And that's kind of what it feels like DC is at right now, where it's like we had Superman, we have Supergirl, we have Man of Tomorrow next year. As a starved Superman fan, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so happy. But also I'm just like, hold on, I'm getting 3 years in a row of Superman plus whatever shows are coming out and whatever else they announce. So it's like it's awesome, but it's also just like, okay, let's take a second here, like to kind of build this up to make it feel like it's just not episodic television. It's movies, it's things that matter. And obviously, Batman Part 2, can't wait for that. It's been a long wait, but at least we know when that film comes. It's like anytime Matt Reeves posts something, it's like the internet is breaking. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where I'm at, where I want these to feel a little bit like bigger and these moments feel really more impactful. And I guess we'll see when not Man of Steel, Man of Tomorrow comes out next year. But Shay, how about you? Temperature check on the DCU at this point.
Yeah, I think same as Anthony. Like, there's it's just confusion, and I think a lot of it also has to deal with the fact that later this year we're also getting Clayface, which is DCU as well.
There you go. That's the other one I was missing.
And it's like, okay, this doesn't look anything like the world of what James Gunn has created. This looks like the Matt Reeves worlds, but Matt Reeves world isn't part of this world. So discombobulated is a great word to use. Just disjointed. It has a bit of an identity crisis, and I think because we're getting so much of the Superman universe with Superman, Supergirl, and Man of Tomorrow, I kind of feel like I'm stuck in this cycle here of just not much of a universe, but more of just a trilogy of films. And yeah, it's a little complicated. Like we saw the trailer for Clayface at CinemaCon. It was hype. It has come out officially now as well. Still very hype. Very much a teaser, a mood setter. But that mood does not match what I've been kind of seeing out in theaters so far. So I'm excited for it, of course, but I just don't know what's happening yet. And I think that's the most confusing part right now, the DCU, where it really just feels like there is no plan and we don't know what we're building up to. Granted, again, it's only the second film that's out right now, but at least with Marvel, it didn't feel like they were even building to something. It felt like they were just telling great stories and building a world. With DCU, it's just like, again, like you said, Daniel, we're thrown into the middle of something and it's like, just get on board. And it's like, okay, cool, like, I guess, but it's hard to connect sometimes.
Yeah, and I get that. And it's also interesting because James Gunn has said, like, they're not going to go into production on something until the script is completely done, which I totally get. But also, like, are the stories that they're moving forward with the right direction for building out a universe? Because it has felt very just like samey kind of into this world that we are. But let's get into Supergirl. So, of course, Milly Alcock is taking on the titular role. We last saw her at the end of Superman. She kind of crashes in, takes her dog, leaves with Krypton. Like, thanks for taking care of my dog, man, and pieces out. And now we are getting a film all around here that this is taking place before the events of the Superman movie. So we're getting to know Kara as a character a lot more. We're getting introduced to Ruthie and a lot of other characters that we'll know from the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow book, which is from Tom King, which is in Shay's background as well too. A lot of this movie is inspired. It's somewhere in Anthony's background, maybe. We'll see.
It's not there. I don't have it.
It's okay. We'll get it for you. We'll get it for you for Christmas. But yeah, it's a lot of this story of this film is taken right from the pages of this book, which again is a very interesting direction to go for a movie one for Supergirl. But let's talk all about it. Shay, kick us off with your first reaction to Supergirl.
I really, really like Milly Alcock. I think she's so engaging and so just as an actress, she's just so fun to watch. And I think her as Kara is fantastic. Her as Supergirl is amazing, and she's one of the best parts of this movie. But I think Supergirl as a whole is a bit of a mixed bag for me. There's a lot of stuff that I like in terms of what we're looking at with these characters and some moments of the film. But I think a lot of it, I just kind of felt like kind of felt in this generic superhero world that a lot of people have been complaining about online, of saying, like, we're stuck in this, like, this is what the movie is and this is how movies go with superhero. It's like a genre. And when I think of genre superhero movies that people always describe online, Supergirl kind of fits into that. And while I said there's great performances and great moments in this movie, and they've already kind of shown it online that we do get to see a lot of David Corenswet as Superman in this movie. There's some great parts of it, but I think altogether, not everything hits for me. And also, I think kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of this, where we're seeing, a very similar story kind of progress. This movie also has to deal with crypto in some capacity. And while that's great, and while I understand that, that's where the story can go, it just feels like a bit of whiplash when the last film that we got was also about crypto in some capacity and how they have to save him and get him back and everything. And Supergirl kind of continues that thread. Craig Gillespie he's a great director, but I thought he was a very interesting choice for a movie like this, where it's very effects heavy. But I think the wheelhouse of Craig is that he's great at showing misunderstood women and really highlighting them. You look at Cruella, I, Tanya, and so many others, even Pam and Tommy. Supergirl really, really continues that essence of what Craig is telling a great story of. But I think when you look at some of the set designs, some of the areas that they're shooting this film in, and overall the encompassing of this movie, it just tends to feel a bit generic. And I think there's a better movie in here, but we're kind of bogged down by just some of the more superhero elements that make it feel a little bit safe in some regards. I think the villain Krem, I think he's okay. You get that he's evil, but you don't really care much more else about him. And when he shows up, he just kills and then leaves and says like a couple drunken lines and then goes away again. So it kind of suffers from that era of Marvel where we were really like, I would say like Thor: The Dark World era. Some of these sequels that we were getting where the villains didn't really matter and the story was just trying to be pushed through to build out a universe. Again, I don't know what universe we were building out here and what story we were trying to tell, but I think I was kind of stuck in that area.
It's funny you mentioned Thor: The Dark World, Shay, because it's crazy how that movie kind of got, not the movie itself, but like a lot of the elements of that film kind of been, given a little bit more grace with the sequels, with Endgame, with Infinity War, of how Thor has been treated. So you're like, okay, we're giving a little bit more to that. But again, aside from that, I want to jump off of when you were talking about Craig Gillespie, because I 100% agree with you where he, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a lot of sense to him to helm a film like this, where we want to highlight a character that I think, isn't perfect. Kara does not want to be Superman. She does not want to have that mantle. She even says in the trailer, she says it throughout the film, Superman shows the world what they can be. I'm show the world kind of who they are, what really is happening in this world. And I think that's so smart for an approach to a character like Kara, where she's always kind of been a little bit more of the rambunctious, just I'm Superman's cousin, but I am not Superman. And Milly Alcock, I think, shines in that. She is so good at, I think, playing this type of character where you're just like, I'm a little on edge. I'm probably a little drunk. I'm a little hungover, but I'm going to kind of swashbuckle my way through this. And I think it's really fun to see her play those moments in this film, because there's a lot of moments in this film where she kind of, balances that line of just like, I'm going to do what's right, but I'm also just like hungover. I don't give a shit. I want to do my own thing. And it's really kind of fun to see that. I think the biggest thing for Supergirl that just kind of lost it with me is that when you have a director like Craig Gillespie, you want Craig Gillespie to kind of be the driving creative vision in this film. And what I think Supergirl, I feel like Supergirl almost feels like, okay, we're going to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but we're going to do Guardians of the Galaxy without the bite that Guardians of the Galaxy has, without, the real like strong vision of what that film has. So much of Supergirl for me kind of visually feels the exact same. Fights feel the exact same. And we're kind of going moment for moment, feeling like we're doing just a different variation of what the scene came before. And that's kind of what's disappointing for me, is because in a movie where you are adapting, a great novel, a great graphic novel, a great storyline, a great run of comics for Supergirl, like, yeah, we're getting this, but we're getting it in such a generic lens. Like Shay was saying, it just feels a little generic. It feels like, okay, this is what the house style for aliens is like right now, which feels like a lot of offshoots of Guardians of the Galaxies and that kind of feel. But then we're also just getting a reliance on music, which I'm like, okay, this feels very Guardians of the Galaxy now, where we're getting these 1970s and 1980s needle drops, and it's, very prolific through the marketing of this film. And I'm like, okay, Superman and music had a big connection last year that we kind of saw. We're seeing in this. And I'm like, I know this is a James Gunn thing, but it makes it feel like this is more of a James Gunn lens film than it is a Craig Gillespie. And I think that's where I'm a little disappointed that Craig Gillespie, I don't think, was given more of his vision to kind of shine and what this movie could be. It just kind of tailed into more of aliens and space and fights, and it didn't really ever land for me that way. But let me tell you, Milly Alcock, great. Jason Momoa as Lobo, like, this is the role this guy was born to play. And it's funny now that we are, 10 years removed from him being as Aquaman, from that first announcement of he's going to be Aquaman, and how much of a different take that was on Aquaman. I really liked Momoa as Aquaman, especially in that first movie, at least, because it was so different from what we thought that character was from the comics. So now to see him as Lobo is like, yeah, this makes sense. He's exactly Lobo, but it doesn't have that kind of inspired casting choice that it was for Aquaman. And it's so funny to see that in hindsight, where it's like, yeah, he's amazing as Lobo. I knew he would always be amazing as Lobo because he is Lobo in real life. He's just, he carried my man. Like, that's his persona, and he just nails that. But it's obviously, it's great as Lobo, but it doesn't like blow your brain because like that's who you always know this character to be. So that's kind of where I'm at with Supergirl, where I think Milly is great. She gets to really shine in what she does best. She's really fun in some moments, but so much of this movie for me just feels like, okay, we're kind of staying in the same thing constantly and over again. So by the end of it, and it's not a long movie. It is not a long movie at all. You're just kind of left like, okay,
25 minutes long.
Super
crazy.
No, it's like it's under
hour 47.
Hour 47. That's with credits, right? So it's like it's like maybe an hour 42. So by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I know who Supergirl is, but it's like I don't like really understand who she is as a character yet. You know what I mean? But there's lots more we'll talk about.
Yeah, that I think the movie just lacks identity. It doesn't really paint Supergirl or Kara as a certain person. It paints her as a tortured soul, which I think Milly does really well. And for me, the tortured soul, you see it in her eyes, but it falls flat because the storyline doesn't really drive it. And that's where I'm at with a lot of comic book films, and comic books do such a better job at it, is capturing the emotional connection with the audience. Like, I've come from a planet that I've lost everyone from, and I'm going to some random planet that my cousin's living on. How do I feel? So you kind of get it in the sense that, yeah, she drinks a lot, does drugs, she goes to a red planet red sun planets, just so she can feel something. But I needed more because a lot of it is just fun and games, and it's almost like these executives are like, yeah, let's just make it fun. Who cares about the story? The visual effects will save the movie, and people will call it cool, and we could get on with another one, and we'll make money. And like,
that's a DCEU issue. Like, that's something that the DCEU struggled with a lot of, and that's kind of where Supergirl feels like, it almost feels like a DCEU movie in that regard.
Yeah. So that the emotional connection for me, there are moments, but you just lose it because it just falls flat. There is so many points in this movie where I've wanted to feel why she felt this way. A lot of it also is being thrown into a film where Kara is not really. This is our first real look at Supergirl in however many years, 30 years, right? 40 years since the last one.
Yeah, like on the big screen, because obviously we had the shows and stuff, right?
Right. And how many people have watched the shows? How many people remember the movie? Like, this is going for the general audience look. This is our first feeling and look at her. This is not the right story to tell. Woman of Tomorrow is not the right story to tell for Supergirl. I think there is such a better story there to really invoke why she is the way she is. And I think, like, I really like, there's a part of the ending where I really like, and it surprised me. I'm like, okay, well, she is different. She acts different, because Supergirl in the comics, she was very much like Superman, but then as she grew out of the different generations, she's changed a lot. And I'm like, oh wow, she is like Superman with the empathy and the hope, but she will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I think the ending really sets that up for a character. And I wonder how that works with Clark. And when you watch this movie, if you do watch this movie, I wonder how these two characters will get along, if she will find the same type of inspiration that our Superman from the Superman films feels. But, you know, as a whole, as a big picture, there's so much of this movie that just feels like I've seen before. Guardians of the Galaxy, being in the sand dunes and alien planets that just feel so small and sandy. I hate sand.
Okay,
and just
Anakin.
the alien designs feel very similar to things that we've seen. It just doesn't have even the visual effects and the style of Supergirl. And it reminded me of the Flash. It reminded me of Justice League. I'm like, why are you making these sequences like this? Have you not learned? Have you not like tried something else? It's almost like, well, we have the visual effects for these films. Let's reuse them because we don't have to spend the same amount of money, or this is all I know. And Craig, he's a great director. I like him. I like his style of editing, but this movie does not feel like his movie. This feels like a commercialized version of what the executives wanted this story to be and what James Gunn wanted it to be. And he was just behind the camera. I don't know. I'm not a fan, as you could tell, of this film.
You know, it's so funny though, because like you look at Cruella, which feels like it should have a lot of the same issues. I loved Cruella. Like truthfully,
Great
I think
film.
Cruella is a great film. It is so director driven, that movie, and it's also a very effects heavy movie. So, and like when you're looking this on paper, it's like Craig makes perfect sense for especially what this movie is tackling. But again, I think the biggest issue I have is like this is not the right story for a first movie into a Supergirl movie, especially because last year with Superman, David Corenswet obviously is amazing as Superman, and he shines in this movie too. I wasn't expecting him to have like billing in this, but he is billed in the opening credits with like David Krumholtz and Jason Momoa, and it's like and David Corenswet, which is like crazy of how much David is in this movie. The biggest problem I had with Superman last year is that I wanted to see him acclimate to Earth, and people were like, "Oh, you've seen this a million times." I'm like, "Yeah, but there's still something to see a character get used to his surroundings, meet Lois, you know." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe Supergirl. We've never really seen that for Supergirl on the big screen, or we haven't in 30 plus years, longer, like 40 something years." So it's like it would have been really cool to see Supergirl getting what Clark did in his movie, where it's like, okay, let's see her adapting to Earth, to being in a world after losing her planet. And there's so much to that I wish we got to see. And this movie does something really interesting where it kind of doubles down on the plot from Superman, where it's like, yeah, Superman was sent here to kill. You're going to kind of get something that reinforces that even more in the most throwaway drive-by way ever in this movie. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, something I really liked, and we saw this in the trailers as well too, is that we get to spend some time on Krypton in this movie as we're starting to see this world dying. And again, you know, I'm a sucker for seeing Krypton explode. I'm sorry. I love seeing that on in the movies. It's nice to see because it is such a crucial part, I think, of the DC universe. I like seeing what comes of this afterwards. And a choice, definitely a creative choice in this film, was to have the characters all speak in Kryptonian. I get this is the language they speak on this planet, but as it is not a real language, sometimes it felt a little strange to hear it. Shay, do you agree?
Yeah, it sounded like they didn't know how to speak it. I think that was kind of my biggest problem, where it's like people that clearly don't speak this language. Like, I don't ever question when the elves in Lord of the Rings speak Elvish, or even when Aragorn speaks Elvish. Like, I believe that they're learning this language, but these people who are born learning and speaking Kryptonian sound like they're learning it. And it just sounded like a really fake language. I didn't believe in it. It also was just super distracting because I'm like, you know what? Do the thing that you mentioned when we were talking about this afterwards, Daniel. You said, when we watch a movie like Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, where we're seeing the subtitles kind of come in Russian or whatever language, and then they kind of morph into English. Like, and a lot of movies do that with speaking as well, where you're hearing it in a different language, and all of a sudden it's just a morph because as the audience we're hearing it this way. So just do that. Just speak American. Like that's what we're all about
No.
here. No, I'm just kidding. But just let me hear English at this point because it sounds distracting. It sounds kind of fake, especially when we're seeing Kara on that ship speaking to other aliens in the common tongue or in English. It's like, okay, that's fine. Just do that for us too, because it just, again, it was very distracting to hear.
Yeah, and I think it undercuts a lot of the emotion because, again, David Krumholtz, who we love, is giving it in this movie, and he actually has a really powerful performance in the small amount of screen time that he has as Zor-El. But it's just like when you hear him talking that way, and he also does he not have like blue contacts on as well too in this movie?
Possibly.
Like his eyes, like I feel like he had blue contacts on in this movie. It just like it's so distracting the way he's talking because he's selling it, but like I believe it visually, but as soon as I hear the language, I'm like, oh, this sounds off to me, and it's not. Again, like Shay was saying, it has nothing to do with hearing a different language. If I think it's just this specific language just sounds a little distracting, and I just think it would have gone a long way for this movie, emotional tone wise, to like maintain, the English in it, and it would have allowed us as people who were trying to connect with Kara to be like, okay, I understand what she's going through now, or just have it without any language, because you could have had a whole sequence without any speaking at all, and I think you would have understood what was going on, obviously, with her being sent to survive, right? So
I think that's the other point that I love what you just brought up there, Daniel, about having that scene, that whole moment take place without any dialogue. But I think the biggest problem with this film also, and something that we saw happening a lot in the production of this movie, was the lack of a composer or their lack of a score thereof, because this is a very needle drop heavy film. That moment, you're right, it would have been so beautiful if it was just music, if it was just score that was carrying the emotional weight, because visually it looked great. It looked like it was devastating what was happening, and you didn't need any dialogue for the Krypton blowing up. But because we don't have a score really that's taking over the emotional part of it, it feels empty. And I think that's another big issue with this film. I know they went through a couple composers and it was kind of messy, but there really isn't a score in this film that I'm remembering or really hanging on to. It's just needle drops.
yeah, needle drops are carrying a lot of it, and they're not really impactful needle drops. And I think, again, it's that thing where it's like, okay, not every movie could be Guardians of the Galaxy, where music is intertwined into the storytelling of it. But and listen, I love James Gunn, but so much of these projects now that we're getting, it's like, okay, Guardians was all music focused. Suicide Squad, like the one he did in 2021, had a lot of music focus. Superman had a lot of music woven into the story of that movie. Peacemaker is always talking about music. It's like, I understand we love music, but like I think when we're using music as a crutch instead of underlying more powerful moments, you're relying on the music and you're distracting from the story that you're ultimately telling with Supergirl, which I think a lot of the time when the next needle drop came on, I was just like, okay, this is a cool scene for a fight, but it's like I'm getting overstimulated by the amount of needle drops in this thing.
And I think that's where James Gunn, when you're passionate about something, it organically comes out. So, Gunn is passionate about music. He's talked about it many, many times, the way he works with it, how it just is part of the DNA of all his films. So you're trying to recreate that with someone who doesn't have that same passion. Also, I don't think has the same passion for the comics as well. You're gonna get what you get, and that's what this movie is. I think if you had someone who, and not just the music, but just passionate about telling this character, knowing where this character is coming from, it would look so much better and feel so much better on the big screen.
I agree.
Yeah, you're right. But I think that I want to double down on is, and this is to anybody out there who is coming into this film already with that kind of mindset of like, we don't want a woman superhero. We don't want Milly Alcock. Like, you are absolutely wrong. Milly Alcock is the future. She's fantastic. She's so good as Supergirl. And it excites me to know that we're going to be getting more of her in Man of Tomorrow and in future DC projects as well, because she really is so engaging and really sets you in for one of the best rides that you can have with her.
100%. And I think that's also like, if you couldn't tell, like the way we're talking about this film, like a lot of our issues with it come from the story itself. Like, this isn't like, we're not gonna have a thumbnail on YouTube with giant Milly Alcock crying eyes. Like,
Tears.
and that's what bothers me so much. And I think that's what we spoke about a little bit after watching this too, where it's like, yeah, this movie could have not landed with us, but it's like, it's not a win for that side of the internet. You know what I mean? It's not at all. And I think hopefully, like a lot of movies in the Marvel universe and movies that hopefully this movie will get a little bit more redemption later off of what points it is bringing up. Or the best redemption you could have for, you know, a movie like this is to make a sequel better and go in that right direction. You know what I mean? Like in the sense where this movie did a lot of heavy lifting and Superman did a lot of heavy lifting of, okay, we're establishing the DC universe itself, who these characters are. And the best thing coming out of this film is like, okay, we have Superman, we have Supergirl. We're going to know from this point forward, especially with Man of Tomorrow, that the DC universe is fully cooking at this point. Now it's time to really, you know, let's start spreading our wings and seeing what else this world has to offer.
I mean, we got Supergirl now. We got Supergirl not long ago with Sasha Calle in The Flash. Not maybe the best film to have a character like that, but I think we're on the right path here.
Yeah. Interesting choice. That's a whole other conversation with
that we'll never have.
The choice of that movie. We'll never have on the show. Maybe one day. But let's get to our final recommendations for Supergirl. Shahbaz, I'm going to get you to start us off.
You know, like we mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of great things in this film, but I think the majority of the story and some of the more generic feels of it don't really make it something that I'm saying, hey, you got to go watch this right away in theaters. I think this is something that you can add to your queue when it's out at home in whatever capacity. Give it a watch then and see how you feel. But we are going to be getting a lot more of this universe, so definitely make sure to watch it so you are prepared for what comes down the road.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think add it to your queue. This is something that you could catch up on. You know, when you're doing your Superman rewatch, you're getting ready for Man of Tomorrow rewatch. Like, this is where you could kind of get Supergirl in there and maybe get ready for Lanterns and all of that. So yeah, check it out then. I think Milly Alcock is great in this role, and I really hope that she's given a lot more to do in the future, because she is, I think, at her best when she is paired with somebody who is just the complete opposite of her, in the sense of like Superman. And I'm so curious to see how she's going to act with people like Lex Luthor and Lois and people like that. So like, I'm really excited to see her in these situations. I want to get her out of space. I want to see this character on Earth interacting with these characters, because I think that's where, you know, the foil of her characters are really going to start to show. But yeah, add it to your queue. Anthony, take us on home.
Yeah, it's an added to your queue for me. I think if you want generic superhero action bang, no story, then this is the movie for you. But I think I expected more from this film, and I hope they course correct it for future films.
100%. Of course, Supergirl is out this Friday in theaters. We'll have our interviews out with the cast, or with Milly, and director Craig Gillespie out, so you can catch that on the podcast feed, on socials, and here on YouTube if you are watching our lovely, lovely faces. If you're wondering why I'm wearing such bright colors, is so you know that, you know, I'm a good guy. That's exactly why I'm doing that. Of course, this is the movie podcast. You can catch brand new episodes all throughout the week, and we have a lot of them for you this week. Check out our podcast feed for everything you need to know and more. Our show notes below have all the links to everything to watch, to listen, to check out on socials. There's so much going on here, and we are full blown into the summer movie season. Lots more to come. But until then, that was this time with the movie podcast, and we'll see you next.